When you hear the word pollution, what pops into your head? Probably smokestacks, right? Or maybe plastic in the ocean. But there's another kind, one that blankets our planet every single night. Okay, let's dive into the pollution we can actually see. Light.
It's a pretty powerful question to think about, isn't it? I mean, we've basically conquered the night with our artificial light, but what's the real cost of that victory for a natural world that's only ever known the rhythm of the sun and the moon?
So, what are we really talking about here? Well, light pollution is basically any man-made light that spills into the night where it's not wanted or needed. Think about it. The constant glow from streetlights, all those lights left on in office buildings, bright lights along the coast, or those huge flashy digital billboards, it really all adds up.
And this is no small thing. The United Nations Environment Program puts it very starkly. Artificial light is a serious disruptor. It can completely disorient animals, mess with migrations, and even stop threatened species from recovering. This is a big deal, a global environmental stressor. To really get a handle on the impact, let's start with maybe the most famous victim of light pollution, the sea turtle. Their story is a perfect and totally tragic example of instinct just going horribly wrong. Now, for millions and millions of years, this instinct was absolutely foolproof. After hatching on these dark beaches, baby sea turtles would search for the brightest horizon. And that glow, it was always the moonlight and starlight bouncing off the waves, guiding them right to the safety of the sea. But today, that ancient programming is getting hacked. On one side, you've got the natural cue they followed for eons, the moonlight on the water. But on the other, you have this artificial trap, the much brighter glow of streetlights, hotels, and highways. Their path to survival has turned into a deadly detour inland. And it's the sheer scale of this tragedy that's so hard to grasp. Conservation groups report that every single year, millions of hatchlings are drawn the wrong way by our lights. They end up dying from dehydration, getting picked off by predators, or being run over. Millions. It's not just the turtles, though. Not by a long shot. The problem goes way beyond the beach, affecting animals that travel by air and live in our own backyards, in forests and fields. A lot like ancient sailors, many bird species are just incredible celestial navigators. They fly thousands of miles in the dark, using the moon and the stars as their map. But the bright glow from our cities creates this disorienting haze, and it basically erases their map right out of the sky. And the result? It's chaos. These birds get confused, they get exhausted, and they're often drawn towards brightly lit buildings and towers. They end up circling them until they either collide or just drop from exhaustion. And again, we're talking about millions of deaths every single year. And what's so fascinating here is how this affects so many different kinds of animals. Take bats, for example. They're crucial for controlling insect populations, but they actively avoid lit areas. That shrinks their hunting grounds. Or frogs. They depend on darkness for their mating calls, but they go silent under bright lights, which crushes their chances to reproduce. Even predators like owls find their amazing night vision gets overwhelmed, making it way harder for them to hunt. This brings us to what might be the most profound and honestly the most overlooked consequence of light pollution. It starts with the smallest of creatures, but it threatens to unravel entire ecosystems. Get a load of this. 50% of all insect species on Earth are active at night. That's just an astonishing number. These are the pollinators, the decomposers, the absolute foundation of the food web that kicks into gear while we're all asleep. We've all seen this, right? A moth just endlessly circling a porch light. Well, that's called light trapping. The artificial light completely messes with their internal navigation, and they just can't break away. They either die from pure exhaustion, or they become a super easy meal for predators. And this sets off a devastating chain reaction. First, the insects get pulled away from their main job, pollinating plants and just being part of the ecosystem. Then, as their numbers just plummet, the entire food chain starts to wobble. Pollination suffers, and then the birds, the bats, and all the other animals that depend on those insects for food, they start to starve. It's a silent collapse, happening right over our heads. Now, you might think the water would be a safe haven from all this, a final refuge of darkness. But nope, the reach of our light goes even deeper than that, right beneath the surface. Light from our coastal cities, from bridges, from piers, it can actually penetrate deep into oceans and lakes. And this messes with one of the largest migrations on the entire planet, the daily vertical trek of zooplankton. They rise to the surface at night to feed and then sink down to the depths during the day to hide.
So when artificial light throws off this ancient rhythm, the whole system gets thrown out of whack. Fish larvae and other creatures that depend on that migration for food are suddenly in trouble. And the key thing is, this disruption doesn't just stay at the surface. It sends ripples down through the entire marine food web.
Which leaves us with this final thought. We've lit up our world for safety, for convenience, basically turning night into day. But in our quest to conquer the dark, we might be forcing the natural world to lose something absolutely fundamental, the darkness it needs to survive. So what else are we losing in the glare?